Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. It's been said that foreign aid is when poor people in a rich country are taxed to support rich people in a poor country. Our first story is a prime example. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Assign the incompetent guy the task of making a business plan. Many years ago, I was tasked with making a business plan for a woman-owned and operated business in a rural, low-income area where English is not spoken. There was a big grant from outside the country that made this project happen, and a country-based NGO, non-governmental organization, that managed the grant. The business had been dependent on the grant for years. The idea was to use the business plan to make the business independent and self-sufficient so the grant could then go to a new rural area and begin again with a new business employing new women. I worked for the NGO administering the grant. I explained that I was not the best person to do a business plan because I don't speak the language, I never owned a business, I don't have a business degree, nor have I ever taken a business course. I don't have any experience or knowledge of what a business plan is. They insisted that none of the above disqualify me from making a business plan for this project. I should also say that I didn't have the internet to help me. The internet was 3 long bus rides away and would require a stay overnight at a hotel where I would use an expensive internet cafe that had viruses and keystroke loggers and charged by the minute. The 90s. This would all be on my dollar, so I didn't do it. I didn't have a car. The town had one phone line with no outlet. It was just a piece of copper wire to an old phone guarded by the guy who also reads all your mail. Phone calls were expensive. I imagined that a business plan assessed the efficiency of use of assets and also tracked and categorized all income and expenses. This was the basis for my plan. I started asking questions and I was asked for the finished plan. I explained that it was taking a bit longer than expected because of the language barriers, but a description of the grant would help. I got a pile of unorganized papers. Some of the papers were in English. I found out that the grant purchased a truck to collect and deliver raw materials and finished products. There were no vehicles in the village. A bus came through, but no one owned a vehicle. No one had ever seen a truck. Also, it said that the grant purchased the building of the business. However, in talking with the locals many times using redundant terms and phrases to ensure understanding, I learned that the building was rented. I met the owner who had no affiliation with the business. They just sat collecting rent money each month. This was surprising because I'd been told by the NGO that the building was owned by the business. I imagined that somewhere there was someone in the capital city sitting on a fat stash of cash, enough to buy a house, and driving a free truck to their summer house with a pool. It occurred to me that they picked me to make the business plan because I wouldn't do a thorough job and find these discrepancies. They also wouldn't expect me to report their embezzlement to the organization doing the embezzlement. However, that's what I did. I told the NGO that self-sufficiency would always be a long way off if the business was hampered by rent that was more than collective monthly wages. I mentioned that selling the truck might help as it appeared to not be used for the purposes listed in the grant. I sent my business plan in. The country that provided the grant visited. The missing truck mysteriously showed up. The ambassador person was surprised to see me in this rural village. I looked like I was not from there, and they spoke some English. They asked if I lived there. I said yes. They asked if I knew what was going on. I said yes. The NGO person from the capital was there and overheard. They knew what I knew and also knew that the ambassador would not love to hear about embezzlement, even though it's common in low-income areas with NGOs. That's when I lost my job. I never told the ambassador that money was misappropriated. I believed that to do so would result in some consequences, trumped-up charges for embarrassing country officials, where I would be at a tremendous disadvantage in country that the ambassador would not be able to help me with. Also, the fact that the conversation ended there tells me that the ambassador was not at their first rodeo and knew that it was 90% performance. I think he genuinely wanted to see some good come to the village, even if it didn't meet the level specified in the grant. I think the question about, "Do you know what's going on?" was merely to see if I saw what he was seeing. I feel proud of what I did because I probably could have turned in a crap business plan and they would have praised me for it, but I did exactly what I was told even though it was difficult and challenging, and for that, my services were no longer needed. I guess I'm missing the part where they face consequences of my compliance, but it felt good to let them know they were not so sly as they thought, and I got out of a situation where I could have been partly blamed for corruption had I stayed. And our second story. You can't use a competitor's phone. Well, folks, I work on cell phone towers. I used to work in an extremely remote rural area for a now defunct small cell phone company. The conversations are to the best of my recollection. The area I worked was the type of area where you could drive for hours and not see anything but field, forests, and animals. Most of the sites I had were what's referred to as island sites, meaning they don't hand off to another cell tower. And most of these sites were about 30 minutes apart on a good day. Well, I worked nights, but you get the drift. So it came around that a competitor had located quite a few sites near our sites. I, being of the mindset of efficiency, purchased a phone from them, and with approval from my boss, kept it ready, especially during upgrades. But he was the type when anyone above him says, boo, he'd jump and ask if he jumped high enough or should he jump again. So a couple months later, boss's boss leaves and we get a new boss's boss who spent 250% of his life in the confines of New York City. Within his first week, he's working the switch and sees me call in from our competitor's number. Of course, he takes offense to this and it quickly comes down that nobody may use a competitor's phone. I bring up my concerns, but, they don't need to do this in New York City, so we're not going to do this. Mind you, my job is to shut down our sites and upgrade or repair them. Yes, I am the guy you love to hate when you can't make a phone call. And so it happens a short time later. I'm at one of my most remote sites, a 45-minute drive to the next site on a good day, about 4 hours from home. I do my diligence, call the switch, tell them what I need them to change, and shut down the site. An hour later, site's not up. I go through everything on my end. Yep, everything's good. Crap. Now there's a couple of payphones, but they were the competitor's phone, so I start driving. It takes me about 1.5 hours to get to the next site because of a freak blizzard. Crap, that site's down too. Roll on to the next site, usually about 30 minutes, but it's snowing hard and the roads are crap. 2.5 hours on the road after leaving the original site, I finally get service, pull over, and in 5 minutes we figured out the switch crossed a number and took down the wrong site. Switch promises to fix it, and I drive 3 hours back to the original site. 30 minutes later, it's still not up. This time it takes an hour to get to the closest site, call the switch again, they get it up, and after about 30 minutes, I verify it's up. Hooray! But I still have to drive back, clean up, and make some testing calls. 18 some odd hours after I left my driveway, I pull back in and submit my time, complete with the OT. It's my Friday. I turn off the phone and hit the bed. Monday morning, I turn on my phone for our weekly call-in meeting, and I crap you not, it buzzes with new texts and voicemails for 20 straight minutes, all from boss and boss's boss. I jump on the call, and first thing I hear is boss's boss. BB, why the F did you have a nearly 9-hour outage for a 30-minute upgrade? Before I get a word in, and how dare you claim 9 hours of OT when you were clearly effing around not doing your job? Me. Well, there were a series of issues outside of the site, and a freak snowstorm slowed my response. I hit send on emails I'd already prepared before clocking out for the weekend with full rundown of events of the night as a reply to the emails coming down from him dismissing my needs for a competitor's phone and included his boss, vice president of the company. BB, I don't want to effing hear excuses from you. Why didn't you just use a effing payphone and call for help? Literally, everyone on the call groaned. Me. In case you don't remember, I just replied to a series of emails where you forbade me under threat of termination from using a competitor's phone. At this point, I hear VP join our call, and since payphones are owned by a competitor, I spent 6 hours driving around in a blizzard searching for service instead of spending 45 minutes to an hour and making a call on a competitor's phone. BB, I never effing threatened to terminate anyone. Don't be stupid. You could have used a payphone. VP cuts in. It appears, BB, that you do not remember what you said. and Mr. OP has clearly documented his actions on the night in question. BB, please call me immediately. Thank you everyone else for your time this morning. Please have a good day. This meeting is over. BB was removed shortly afterwards, having a fairly rocky rest of his short employment. I now work for the company which purchased our competitor. I've moved to my home state, though, and still work a rural market. It's not quite as bad. And our last story. Man and woman blocked my car in. Today I took my daughter to a playground. Across from the park are two houses owned by the same couple. Each house has 3 parking spots in front, plus 1 parking spot that straddles the 2 properties. They have posted resident parking only signs in front of both their houses. It's a public street and obviously not enforceable, so I parked in the spot that straddles the 2 houses, so each house has 3 spots in front of it for them to use. The husband came out of the house and screamed that I needed to move my car so his wife could park there. I said that it's a public street and she can park in the empty spot in front of or behind me. He pointed at me and said, "I'll show you." He and his wife moved their cars so both were touching my bumpers and I couldn't get out. I called the police, who took an hour to get there, so I was stuck for an hour. The cop told the man to move. The man laughed and said, "Yeah, I know I can't do that. I was just being a Karen." He did move his truck, and after the officer left, he and his wife took pictures of my car and license plate. I asked the officer about getting their signs taken down. He said it's their property and they can put up whatever signs they want. I also go to this park frequently and I don't want to deal with this over and over. Edit. I checked my city's ordinance and the signs are illegal, so I'm reported them to code enforcement. A week later, the signs were gone and I parked in the same spot as last time. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.